All right, good. Hey, everybody. We are so excited to be back with you this week. This week, we are going to be talking about A plus Google Classroom. We are going to have some new updates for Google Classroom. We're going to talk about lots of different things. My name is Brooke Lowry. I'm with Fry Technology, and I'm here with two of my colleagues, and I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves. Jess, you want to say hello?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Jessica Powell Albright. I'm a learning guide here at Pride Technology.
And hello, everybody. I am Jacqueline Glazner, and I'm also a learning guide here at Fried Technology.
And let me tell you guys, y'all are in for a treat because they have got some really cool stuff that they're going to talk about today with Google Classroom. I know I personally love Google Classroom because I'm an organizer. And to me, Google Classroom just keeps all of my digital assignments just nice and tidy. And I didn't have to even spray paint a single cardboard box or find a magic label maker somewhere. Did you guys ever do that in your classrooms where you spent a lot of time with your turn-in baskets?
I had folders, manila folders that I decorated and stapled to the wall for my middle schoolers.
Yeah.
That's pretty handy. Yeah.
Well, that's what Google Classroom is. It's the fancy digital turn-in box. And so let's get started. So if you guys want to find these slides just right off the bat, you can go to fry.tech and you're going to do a /3-16-21. And just so you know, this is being recorded, and right afterwards, you will also be able to see the subtitles in Spanish. So that will be up on the recordings as well. So before we even get started any further, I want to make sure we talk about this free or not, because that's what everybody's been talking about, especially since the newest updates have come out with Google. It's what do I get in my district? What's free? What's paid? So make sure you check out this chart at fry.tech/compare-workspace. I'm going to jump over and look at that. And it's going to be this really handy site. I love anything that's simple for me to read. And to me, this is as simple as it gets, right? Easy for me to look at. I can understand which of these are in my free domain, which one, maybe if I'm in the teaching and learning upgrade. And so anytime you're wondering if you have access to that, just know what you're running in your district and you can jump over and see exactly what's in each of your domains. Yeah. Jess, you got anything you want to add to that? Or are you good?
That's so handy for me because I'm the kind of person who I learn stuff and I know stuff, but I always forget little tiny little factoids like that. So that's a handy little resource for people like me I have the global idea, but I don't remember all the tiny details about what I have and what I don't have. So that for me is a no-brainer. I bookmark it. I hit the little star in my Omnibox to bookmark it, and I go back to it often.
Yes, I'm with you on that. Look, I'm going to do it right now too, so I don't ever forget to do that. Okay. So, and also if you forget it anytime during this presentation, you're trying to figure out how to get back to our slides, we have that located for you up here in the right-hand corner, along with the free or not. And then also the website that you can go to register for any of the upcoming webinars that are still to come, or if you want to watch the recordings from any of the past weeks. So y'all ready to jump in?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, so we're going to jump in first with what are you going to be learning about today? First, we're going to talk about the newest updates that are coming to Google Classroom. Then we're going to show off some originality reports, and then we're going to let Jess shine for sure when she talks to you a little bit more about using rubrics in Google Classroom. All right, so, but did you know that these things are coming to Google Classroom? I've been talking to teachers all year long. Everybody's been saying, I wish Classroom, I wish Classroom. Well, Google heard you, and they're bringing some of those. So first of all, better understand your class with student engagement tracking. So I know for me, when I go over to my assignment page in Google Classroom, I can see if they've worked on it by opening it and looking at it. I can go into version history and look, but that can take a while opening all of those tabs, and it can feel like it's a lot. Well, everybody, if you're using Google and you're using Google Classroom, no matter what package you have, this is coming by the launch of Back to School. And it is a student engagement tracking page where you're going to be able to see all of your students. You're going to be able to see if there was a comment, what the last comment was, when's the last time they submitted, when the last time they worked on that assignment. I don't know if this gives anybody else just like happy excitement chills, but it does me because it can be sometimes a little overwhelming to have to open all those tabs and to look through everything and figure out who did what when, and is this tab, is this class? So to me, this is a huge game changer. What do you ladies think?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. It's so nice too, especially because you've got those kids that maybe they've misplaced things, or they say, oh, I'm not sure if I even had access to that. And you can look at it and it really empowers them in that aspect.
It sure does. Yeah, so I'm super excited. And I love that that one is coming for everybody. Okay, so next, this is also coming for everybody. So we know that sometimes our students are using their cell phones, right? They're using the apps for Google Classroom. Well, now launching back to school time, there's going to be improved photo creation attachments and submissions. What that means is students are going to be able to take pictures from inside Google Classroom of their maybe paperwork or anything that they have. It will make them not, because I'm telling you, if you have to open 13 different individual thumbnail images for something, that could be really hard to grade and look over and see. But this is going to actually make that PDF almost like scanning. It's going to basically be a built-in scanner into the app in Google Classroom. I'm looking forward to this. I think that this is a huge improvement for all of our users.
Oh yeah, because when they're using mobile, which a lot of our students are using mobile at home, especially in the hybrid situation, anytime that you can improve that experience so that students aren't needing full-time phone support as well as classroom learning support, it's going to make it so much better. And I see this simplifying that process quite a bit.
Right. I know from personal experience, I have done some tech over the phone with people about like how to use scanners or how to get scanned documents from email to this or that. And it can be really, it can be, take your time. It can be difficult for people to understand. Yeah, we've got a couple of questions about the engagement tracker that I want to kind of go back and touch. So will you be able to see the activity across all the classes, or will it be one class at a time? I believe at this time, the only thing I've seen is that it's going to be for one class at a time. So that'll be interesting, but I bet that that's going to change over time as well. Okay. Use Classroom offline for students with limited internet connectivity. So I know that we've done a lot of talking with schools this year, and there are some areas that are just rural and it's hard for our students to get connectivity. And so this is going to be a great one because no matter where they are, if they're limited with their connectivity, they can still use that mobile app and they'll be able to sync back up later. And I know that that is something that everyone's been looking forward to.
I don't live in a rural area, but I also have experience recently, I don't know, when everything froze over around here in Texas, when I needed offline access to things. And this would have been a handy update to have at that time too.
It's when you're so used to being online, it feels like a whole new experience to be offline again.
Yes, you do not realize how much you rely on things being online until those situations come. So this is a great solution for that.
Yeah,
it really is. Yeah. So better grading with improved mobile workflows. So I know that teachers, there are a lot of teachers who use the mobile apps for multiple reasons, but one of them is a lot of them love the grading tools that are embedded into a mobile app or into an Android or iOS app. So this is going to be just enhancements for you so that you'll be able to grade easier, whether it's on the go or just because you prefer the grading methods inside of the apps.
I like that.
Me too. I could see myself definitely grading on the go, right? It's right here. Think about that. Digital grading on the go, not pulling that cart behind you with all of your papers, right? I know I definitely had a cart that I carried papers around in from time to time.
Or the book, the big grading book you have to lug around.
Book. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I just had a bag that tore my shoulder all the time.
There was a bag too. This was
slightly unbalanced all the time.
Yes.
So this one is coming for Education Plus. So this is a paid feature, but this is going to help where you're going to be able to sync rosters directly to Google Classroom from your SIS or your student information system. So that means it's going to be able to pull from whatever your student information system is and kind of go ahead and create those classroom rosters for you inside of Google Classroom. Even though it has become extremely handy that you can click on that little join link and have students join with the join link, and you don't really have to put the code in. But this syncing rosters will also be great because it'll just already be set up and the students will already have it on their dashboards. They'll know what they're enrolled in, and it's going to be a very simple, just kind of free-flowing system.
Now, Brooke, I saw that this is also launching back to school, and I remember seeing just a few minutes ago a comment in the chat about what does that actually mean. And guys, I think from Google's perspective, when they tell us back to school, we're looking at August, September timeframe for the next school year.
Yep, August, September time is usually when we start to see those roll out. Great. Okay, and we also, this is part of the Education Plus and Teaching and Learning upgrade, but there are going to be some third-party tools that are going to go ahead and have classroom add-ons. We're already used to having add-ons in Google Docs and Google Sheets and Google Slides. This is just going to be another one of those bonus features that's coming to Google Classroom that's going to let our students maybe even have that single sign-on that they're already using through some of the paid programs. So be looking for these as well.
And so those are the upgraded version, right? So for the paid
Yep.
stuff.
That one's going to be for the paid stuff. Absolutely.
Gotcha.
That one makes me so happy to see, because all of these things that, teachers were using, and they were using Google Classroom, and now they are just as one.
Yeah. It's like when the neighbors come over and they eventually just get comfortable enough, right? Where you don't feel like you have to host them. That's what I always think about with add-ons. It's like, okay, everybody's comfortable. Everybody knows what's going on. They can just make this happen.
Well, they just live here now.
Yeah, they just live here now.
And Brooke, those are just examples. Those are not specifically the only ones or the only 4 that are going to be included. Those are just some little snippets to help us kind of understand. Gotcha.
These are definitely the 4 that we know of for sure, and I know that there are others coming.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, so I feel like Jacqueline is about to blow us away with originality reports, because I love the whole concept behind originality reports. Because sometimes I always feel like plagiarism is such a dirty word. Like, you stole, you're a thief, plagiarism. But originality reports just helps you know, like, am I following the rules? Am I original? Did I do enough of my part to make sure that I'm staying in my lane and I'm sourcing other people in their lane? Like, what do these originality reports really mean for students in education?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Even the way that it's titled, originality reports, plagiarism, it's like that red pen word where as soon as you hear it, you think, oh my gosh, I'm busted. What did I do? And it kind of has that negative connotation. So originality reports focuses on what is the original stuff that our students are bringing to the table. I also love that when we think originality, we think plagiarism, we kind of think gotcha. Okay, this is how are we going to catch you cheating? But it's more than that. Yes, teachers have the ability to view that. When students submit their assignments, they also have the ability to do that. So it empowers not just the teachers, but the students as well. They have the ability to really take charge of what they're submitting and get in front of that, because we live in a digital age. These kids are digital natives. And so it's often hard for them to distinguish between what exactly is plagiarism and maybe what isn't. And this is a great tool to kind of help facilitate that format.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, I like that the students can check along the way so that they don't have to wait until they turn in a final product to double check, so it's not even about the grade as much as it's about the development.
Oh, yes. And that's 100% accurate. Yeah, it is really more about the learning process and being able to access that as opposed to just a gotcha type of situation.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so should we take a look at this and see what it looks like from the student and the teacher side?
Let's take a look.
Yeah, because we have a great question in the chat, so maybe you can answer this as you're talking through it. But are we saying that students have access to originality reports in advance of submission for their self-assessment?
That is exactly what she's saying. And
correct.
That's the part we love the most, because I personally want a student to check that out first, right? Like, I want them to be able to check themselves and then fix anything that they need to and learn from that experience, because that's the whole point of it. It's not supposed to be a gotcha. It's supposed to be to learn from the experience. And so we're going to look at that as well. That's a great question, Michelle. Thanks for asking that one. Okay, so Jacqueline, you want to tell us a little bit about what's new and what's coming before we jump in?
Yeah, so before we do look at that, this is not something that's brand new. Originality reports has actually been around for a bit, but they're making a lot of cool updates and a lot of really neat changes that are going to make it better for our students and better for teachers. One of those things is they are now expanding to 15 plus languages. So right now there's a list that's included in the presentation about which languages are live. So you can see that right there. And then there's also an included list of ones that are coming. And this is great for inclusivity. We want to make sure and really reach as many students as we possibly can and as many learning environments as we can. And so this is a great edit to that.
Yeah. And another change that we've had a few people ask questions about some changes. So I know in the past that the fundamentals version, you got 3 reports per class. And so that meant 3 assignments throughout that class period, like throughout the class and you could use originality reports 3 times. Well, that has been bumped to 5. Everything we've seen, all the research we've done out there in the Google land, we have now seen that it's now 5 reports per class. Now, if you have the Teaching and Learning or the Education Plus, those are going to be unlimited for you so that you can use those, your students and the teachers. But we're going to show you how to turn those on so that you can decide when you're going to use the originality reports or when you're going to pass on that and use it a different time. Okay.
Yes. And anytime you can always pull up that reference sheet that is linked in the presentation that shows what is included in which version of Google, and it'll have it there included.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so tell us a little bit what we're seeing on this slide here.
Okay, so what we are looking at here is an example of originality reports in action. So you'll notice on the left-hand side, Brooke has an assignment, and this has been submitted.
I did. I created it, and I pushed that right there in Google Classroom, and then immediately I saw that my teacher had originality reports turned on.
Mm-hmm.
So I went ahead and I clicked run before I clicked turn in so that I could see my originality report before I decided to turn it in.
And once you did that, you'll see it pop up, that little box that's saying, okay, well, hey, here's your report. Here's the time that we ran it, and you can check that out. After the student has viewed that, again, it really empowers them to be aware of what they are submitting, that they have the option to edit or they can turn in. And you'll also notice on the upper right-hand side, there is another little kind of, hey, heads up, this is what we found, a summary for the originality reports. It gives you a percentage of flagged content. Again, not you're cheating, but it's flagged content to tell you this is what we have found in other various sources. So it finds web matches, and then it pulls out a percentage so that the student's really aware of what they're submitting.
And we had a question come in that asked us about, is there a limit to the number of time to access the reports? So notice up here, it says originality report expires April 30th. And I just did this earlier today. So that kind of lets you know there is going to be when it expires, but you're going to be able to see that as the teacher, and the student also sees that as well.
Yeah, it's about 45 days.
You know, it's really cool. We also just got a question, guys, about will the originality report check student to student work? And right now it doesn't, but guess what, guys, that's coming. We're really excited about that.
Yes, that is so great because, I mean, let's just be honest here. We know that sometimes students are like, oh, I had so-and-so's class last year. And now with digital documents and Google Docs, and they keep all of it, they're like, I'll just share that with you. And then you can, right? So this is kind of cool. Like, again, still not a gotcha. We just want them to learn, and we want them to learn from their own original self and not just be using everybody else's work, whether it's people on the web or their big brother or big sister from last year or their best friend who just took that class. In this way, it's going to really help keep everybody true to their original self.
Exactly. And while that is not an option right now, you can always compare documents within your Google Classroom, and it does that similar feature. It will look at those documents in between what your students have submitted and give you a comparison.
Oh. Okay, so what we're looking at here is just kind of the teacher side also of originality report and the student. This is what they're going to see. They're going to see the flagged content. They're going to see the breakdown here of each of those and exactly where they come from, which is what I think is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, one time I ran this and it pulled like 50% from a website that I had never been to. And so I was like, that's not even the website I took that from. So that was like, that website stole from that website.
Oh.
You know, it's like, that was interesting that it didn't even pull the website that I originally had copied from, but it found maybe one that's used more often, or I cannot speak to the algorithm of how that's being pulled. So even though it's being recorded, I cannot actually speak to the algorithm, but that will for sure is going to be really helpful for our students. Should we see this in Classroom? Do y'all want to look at that?
Yeah, let's take a look.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Let's take a real quick look.
And let's see if we can answer the question that Michelle has. Can the teacher see if a student has run an originality report, or is that only visible to the student?
Well, let's look. When I open up the one that I turned in, so here it is, Brooke Lowry's turned in. So I'm a student in this class. Right now, I'm also a teacher, so that may be confusing to you guys. I'm the same person on both sides here. So I'm going to pull this up. When I see the see history on this, it just shows me the turned in and the signed here. I see that there's a flagged passage that's already been ran, but that's because I also have it turned on as a teacher, the originality report. So I'm going to be able to go in and look at the student's originality report from my side, and I'm going to see, I don't see, Jess, are you seeing something that shows that the student has looked at it either?
No,
And there's actually not, because whenever we
Okay.
tested, whenever we submitted, and then we submitted with a test just to kind of, play around and see what we could get away with
Yeah.
with originality reports. And I just pulled it up, and there's no indicator yet on our end showing if a student did run an originality report or not.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah, so it just goes through and it highlights. I can pull this out. I can look at it. It's very easy to read. There's a count, there's a percentage so that you can check the percentages. And it's very easy. You can print this out if you need to for documentation, which is also really nice. We know that as educators, a lot of times we keep things for documentation. And since this is going to expire April 30th, maybe we want to go ahead and do a quick printout of that because it's something that we're keeping somewhere. So that's good to know. So let's look at, how do I get these originality reports to run? How does that even start for us? So let me go back over here to our coursework. As a teacher, when I click on the create button and I go to assignment, I can put in my title here. So I'm going to do teaching and learning. Okay, and I can put my instructions. I can add a document from my drive that I'm going to have my students fill out. Or if my students also just want to put their own Google Doc in here, they can do that as well. So I'm going to click on this. All right.
Yeah, you'll notice that your option to check plagiarism in that corner is active regardless of if there is an attachment or not, which is a nice feature.
Right. Yep. So once I click this and click assign, it uses one of my turns. I can't go back and say, oh, never mind, I don't want to run it on this. Once I click it, it's clicked. So there's no takebacks here. So if you're on the limited version, if you click this, it's now going to say, okay, that's definitely 100%. We're going to be checking for plagiarism in this topic. Okay. And on this, not this topic, sorry, on this assignment. So I'm going to click assign. And now when my students turn it in, it's going to have their option for them to check for plagiarism for their originality report. And then I'm also, as the teacher, going to get that as well.
And so you'll notice that whenever Brooke set up that assignment and she clicked the box, it immediately, from that moment on, gave the students the ability to run their originality reports. But if, let's say, Brooke's setting up an assignment and she forgot to, or she was like, you know what, I think I'm going to go back and I am going to actually run that now. And she edits the assignment, and you have the option to do so after you've submitted an assignment. She edits it and she selects check plagiarism. Well, now she can run plagiarism reports, but the students, if they have already submitted their assignment, they can't just yet. What they have to do is get their work back and then resubmit. So They need to make sure they submit after that box has been checked.
Yeah, but that's easy enough for the teacher to also return and let them return in. Okay, all right. Well, that was originality reports. I'm looking at our time, and we do not want to squeeze this in last. I think we do this to you all the time, Jess. You are the queen of getting this stuff in, even if we're just squeezing you in here at the end.
But
because you do not want to miss this.
Last week somebody said, Jess, you talk too fast. And I thought, it's because I'm at the end. But I don't want to go too much further because we did have a really important question in the chat about originality reports. The question was, where is the originality report stored, and is it available on the web after I've run the report? And the reality is nothing that you run through originality report is stored. The student's document remains, the document that they've created remains on the web, but the originality report that you've run does not store anywhere. So it's just a process. It's not a thing that it creates necessarily. So you don't have to worry about that. Yep.
Awesome. Okay, great.
Okay, so let's talk about rubrics. I'm really passionate about rubrics. I taught middle school ELA. I did a lot of reading and writing instruction, and I had to grade a lot of papers. Hence the slight slope to my shoulders from all those carrying those papers home. But
it's that book bag.
It's that book bag. But rubrics are super important to saving time, but also not just for the teacher saving time, but for the student who is completing the assignment, having clear goals and expectations of what they need to complete for that assignment. So it's a double whammy. Rubrics are really handy for a lot of different things. I know most teachers I know use rubrics at some point, but knowing how you can build them in Classroom is going to make it super easy. So when you're working with students, what I love about this, and Brooke, if you want to switch over to the Classroom, I'll just walk you through making one.
Let's do it.
So yeah, so when you make a brand new assignment in Classroom, and it has to be an assignment to have the rubric attached to it, give it a title, and put some instructions in, add your attachments, whatever it might be. But you want to go ahead and build your assignment like you normally would. I always, by the way, just as a habit, I always create a new Google Doc on my essays when my students are completing them, because then they get their own copy of that blank Google Doc, and then I can see it as they're working on it, which is a super handy little feature. So Brooke, just on that assignment, she created a new Google Doc. She's calling it whatever the title of the essay is, and making sure students get a copy. And then from here, again, I would set everything up as normal. Notice how it's worth 100 points, and I want to add a rubric. So you click on that little rubric option down there, and you can either create one from scratch, reuse an old one, or import something from a sheet. We'll start with creating a rubric. It's kind of quick, but you'll see how pretty and easy it is. You start adding in your criterion, the thing that you're grading about. Then you start adding in your values. Add your levels, so you might want to make sure that you've got your above average, your average, or below average, and then your description. And that description, guys, is real important, because those are the qualities or the characteristics students need to meet or achieve in order to get those points. So you want to be clear with students on what exactly they need to do to get those points. That's the purpose of the rubric. And so once you've use the little plus symbols to add the ones you want to the left or right, you can even add more criterion down at the bottom. And Brooke, you're using the little duplicate feature, which is super handy. So you don't have to keep adding in all these new, the same, great, working on it, needs improvement. So you can go ahead and do that. And then once you've got all the criterion that you want and all the levels and all the values that you want, at the top, you want to make sure you hit save. So now that a rubric has been created, if you click on it, you can see a little overview of that rubric, which is kind of nice. If there were descriptors in there, you would see all those criterion as well. But
I can't type that fast.
That's okay. That's okay. We're using our imaginations.
Yes.
Yes.
So you can X out in the top left. And so now you've got a rubric attached to this assignment. And when you assign it to the students, what's really cool is that when you've assigned it to the students, they also see that rubric on that assignment, and they can open it while they're working and double check that they're meeting all the expectations and all of the characteristics that they need to get the best score possible. So go ahead and assign that real quick, Brooke, if you don't mind. And so from here, I just wanted to show that whenever you're the teacher and you're looking back at that assignment and you go back to your student work, open the assigned part where it says 3 assigned. Yeah, there you go. And if you were to open, I don't know, Jacqueline's or Brooke's, if they were to open an assignment, you would, as you're grading it, you'll see the rubric on the sidebar in that little grader screen. And once you see the rubric, it's pretty handy.
I don't think I have time to open it on my
side. That's okay. That's all right. That's okay. We're going to use our imagination. So when you're in that grader screen, you know what I'm talking about? How if you go to grade papers, you can leave comments and stuff. You'll see the rubric over there, and you can just click the boxes, and it will assign the point value to it, and it'll factor into your score, which is super great. All right. I know we're 2 minutes in, and I want to do the last 2 things. So one strategy that I used when I worked in the ELA classroom is I worked on with my department to have rubrics that we all could use. And so we would actually run the copies, and everybody would get their handful of copies for their class. But if you create a Google Classroom and you add all of your teammates as co-teachers, but you don't add any students, you guys can start building assignments and attach rubrics to them. So build a generic expository assignment, add a rubric, work on that rubric, make it how you want it. Add a process writing paper, add a rubric. But all the people that are in your department are also co-teachers. So this is where that's going to come in handy.
So Jess, let me get this right for just a second. Let me. So you're saying don't put any students in this class. It's going to be like a shell class, basically.
Yes, it's going to be a holder.
I can have all the teachers on my team in there. We're going to create all of these rubrics so that we don't have to do it each time.
Correct.
But if I put students in there, I'm going to mess everything up. Even if I add my co-teachers as a student, it's probably going to mess things up. Right. They have to be a teacher and teacher only, no students in this class.
That's exactly right. And the reason we want them to be co-teachers is because when they are going back to their classes, working with their students, they will be able to do what you're about to do. When they're building their expository writing assignment for students, they can reuse a rubric instead of building one from scratch. Mm-hmm. They can go find that course that you guys are using as a rubrics class. We have one called 2019 Rubrics. And once you have that pulled up, you can pick one of your previously created assignments, and you can reuse the rubric from that assignment. And then it's already been created.
Love
That
that.
is such a time saver.
Work
Such a
so
time
smarter, not harder.
It is.
Exactly.
It's just, to me, I think this is such a genius idea. Every time Jess talks about it, I'm always like, I mean, this is so great. And I do the same thing for just my class, my assignments in Classroom. I have a shell Classroom that has all of my assignments in it with no students in it. So I can go in and grab my assignments from year to year or from
Yep.
class to class. So I don't have to go through and find. It has all the blank. Nobody's made a copy of it. So I can go into my drive and edit that document if I need to without finding. These shell classes in Google Classroom are just such a smart way to work.
Mhm.
Before you leave, oh, you left. Okay, so
Sorry.
guys, that's okay. You can export those rubrics as a sheet in the upper right-hand corner. You should be able to export your rubric to a sheet. So if you needed a printed version, you could. And the same way you can export them to sheets, you can also do the opposite. You can import a rubric from a sheet. And that's going to take us to our last slide, which I love to give. You guys can have a copy of our template rubric. And I love this. I got it from one of my participants in a session. She shared it with me. She got it from somewhere on social media. We kind of adapted it to make it match some of the criteria here in Texas that we are using, some of the lingo and the verbiage. But if you want a copy of our rubric, you can get it. And when you're on your assignment, when you click on rubric, you can choose upload from sheet. And you can pull this sheet right in. It'll plug in all of the grading criterion. It'll pull in all their qualities and everything. It's super handy. It's a great way to kind of keep your rubrics from year to year if you don't want to use Classrooms. Mm-hmm.
Yep, exactly. Awesome. All right. Well, I think we actually made it. We are 1 minute over, but we did our best. We really did. Okay, well, thanks, you guys. That's a wrap for us this week. If you are interested to learn anything about Google Classroom with the Meet features or anything like that, we did cover it last week. So feel free to go over to the goo.gl edu product training. Sign up. You can find all the recordings from the previous weeks, and we hope to see you guys next Tuesday.
Bye, everybody.
All right,
Bye.
bye-bye.
Thanks so much.